In this video, we're going to go through and explain how the block support drawing number 2 is done in AutoCAD. First thing you're going to want to do is read the blinking text. Watch the video first. Click here and watch it. Let's read through. In this lesson, you will learn the following. You'll reinforce knowledge learned from previous assignments. Some examples are how to open and manipulate an AutoCAD drawing, use autosave, how to use various commands, modifying title block information, saving as a PDF, and uploading to Schoology for a grade. Overview of the steps that you will need to follow. These are very similar to what we've done before. You're going to open the VM software. You're going to go, after you've opened up your Schoology account, you're going to download your software in the VM portal from the downloads folder to your 900 drive. You're going to open AutoCAD. You're going to rename the file drawing 02 introduction to AutoCAD. You're going to rename it to the following: period, last name, first name, drawing number. Don't forget the underscores in there. You're going to modify the title block, name, date, period, plate. In this video, you are going to be using the video to assist you for creating the block support. When you're all done, you're going to save as a PDF, or export it as a PDF, I should say. And then you're going to upload it to Schoology for a grade. Don't forget, the assignment's not uploaded as a PDF, I cannot grade it. Okay? So below you can see the reference drawing. So you're going to have two files attached to this assignment, including also the video that you're watching right now that you can download. The first is going to be this, what I would call your reference sheet or your worksheet that you would go off of. This is going to show us the drawing. Everything that is drawn in green, those are what are called dimensions. Now, dimensions tell us how long or how big or what angle or what diameter an object part is. Very important that we pay attention to making sure that we draw everything to the correct units. If we don't, our object won't look right. So there is our reference sheet. And then we are also going to have another file that's going to look exactly like this. And that's just your blank template. So once you open your template, again, you're going to change your name. Keep in mind, you keep everything capitals. And we like to shout in technical drawing in CAD. So it's going to be last name, comma, first initial, or excuse me, last name, comma, first name. Date is going to be the entire 3-letter abbreviation for the month. In this case, it would be January, Jan. Period. The date, which today is the 21st, 21, comma, 2021. You're going to keep the space in between name and period. You're going to keep the word period. You're going to put in whatever numerator your class is, whether if it's an early or a late, you'll put an E or an L after your number. And then plate number, we should be keeping this the same. Occasionally we might have to update this, but I do not believe we update it this time because it says plate 2 when we are on plate 2. And the title of the drawing is block support. So that is all correct for us. Scale is also correct. All we really have to do is focus over here and change those 3 things. Same rubric as we've been using, making sure that we are following formatting. Now in previous lessons or previous drawings, I've been pointing out your errors. I'm going to start removing myself from pointing out errors in the title block because now we've done 2 drawings. I've pointed out the errors to you. Now you should start getting a good understanding of how your title block should be, the naming of the file, what the correct name of that is. Okay. So again, here is our 2 files that we can download. The DWG is our AutoCAD file. Remember, this has to be downloaded in the VMware because otherwise we do not have AutoCAD available on our laptops. And the other one is going to be the PDF, which is going to be our reference sheet that we're going to use to get all of our information from. Let's take a look here at, I've downloaded them already. Take a look at our reference sheet. Here's our reference sheet. Okay. Notice our object has a certain distance from the edge or border of our drawing over, and also from the top of our title block up, there's a certain distance. So we're going to focus on those two numbers relatively quick. So to make things easier, what I have done is I have actually already preloaded all of the AutoCAD software here. And what we're going to be doing is we are going to be starting with learning a couple of new commands. Now, in previous lessons, I've said we're not going to generally worry about what's going on up here. Now, this time around, we're actually going to start using some of these tools up here along with commands that are on the keyboard. So we're going to type some commands. We're also going to click on some icons for commands. And that way it gets you a little bit of a visual representation as to what icons look like and what, there might be certain things that we can look at. And there's instructions for them telling you, hey, this is what, the offset command does, for instance. Okay. Now, generally what we do is we like to create something called guidelines first. Now, this goes back to your technical drawing times when we try to draw everything as light as possible first, and we create guidelines to start with. After we create guidelines, then we come back and we start drawing in our object lines. The cool thing with AutoCAD is we don't necessarily need to convert guidelines into object lines. We can simply use a command such as trim. And what it'll let us do is it'll let us take two lines that might be crossing each other, and instead of erasing that line, it allows us to trim back that line to that intersecting point. And I'll explain that to you when we get a little bit closer. So a couple of the commands that we're going to be using in this drawing. First is going to be the offset command. And that simply allows us to take an object, such as this line right here, and move it a given distance, automatically keeping it parallel to its original object. And we are also going to be using the line command, which is something that you guys have already learned in drawing number 1, your common commands. Okay, so we're going to use the line command. We're also going to use, again, that trim command, which is going to be, if I click right up here, I've got trim. And then I have its brother, which is extend. I'll explain those to you in a little while. So here's what I'm going to do. I am going to reduce down the screen size here so I can get the objects so that they are sitting side by side. See if I can get this to do it now. Excuse me. Sometimes it's a little difficult to get the little corners to adjust. All right, so I've gone through and I've adjusted it so that I now have my object, my reference drawing here, and I have my main drawing here. Now, if your screen is too small and you can't do this, there is nothing wrong with flipping back and forth between these objects here. I'm just going to do it this way. It makes it a little easier for us. You're also going to notice that AutoCAD has basically simplified or created folders for my different tools to sit in. So if I click on draw, you're going to see I've got some of my tools still in here. If I click modify, I've still got some of my tools in here. Okay. Same thing that we looked at before. It just looks a little bit different. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to just zoom out just a little bit so it makes it a little easier. We're going to start with this distance right here, this 1.52, and that's off of this edge right here. Now we're not going to worry about units and all that stuff. So we're just going to go ahead and just start typing in some values and creating this object. Later on, we'll worry about changing units in the drawings and things like that. But right now, we're not going to worry about that. We just want to get used to how to create the objects. I'm going to come down over to this Modify tab, and I'm going to click on this upside down T. That's offset. Now I could also come down and I could type in offset on my keyboard. It does not matter which way you go. Either one is perfectly acceptable. You're going to notice AutoCAD is now asking us a question. Specify offset distance. All right. Our distance happens to be this number here, 1.52. So I'm just going to type on my keyboard, 1.52. Hit the Enter key. Now it's going to ask, what object do you want to offset? I'm going to pick this border line. And now it's going to ask me, which direction do you want it to go? Do you want it to go to the left of the original object, or do you want it to go to the right of the original object? We're going to pick right. Now, to get out of the command, I'm going to right click. I'm going to hit Enter. The other way that you can get out of the command is by hitting the Escape key on your keyboard 2 times. Now I want to figure out this vertical line right here. And I know that it needs to be a distance of 1.57 units from the top of my title block up. I'm going to go back into the offset command again. So here's how I'm going to go back into the offset command. I can do one of 2 things. Because offset was my last command that I went into, I can hit the space bar. And that will bring me back into the same command, the very last command that I was in. I can type in my distance, 1.57. Now, you might notice, if we look in these brackets here, this default size, this is the last known entry that AutoCAD had. Sometimes it defaults to nothing there because there was no value there originally. But in this case, we typed in a value of 1.52. Well, that's not 1.52. So AutoCAD, what it's doing right now is it's looking and it's putting in a fractional number that's close to the number that we used. So 1 1/2 is the decimal equivalent of 1.50. Pretty close to what we were doing there before, okay? But we don't want to assume that this number is going to be correct for us. We want to type in that number. So 1.57, hit Enter. It's going to ask us what object. We're going to pick this line here and offset upwards. I'm going to go ahead, right click and Enter. Now, we can use the offset command and we can actually build almost this whole drawing. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to do that a little bit. We're going to use the offset command as much as we possibly can, because honestly, if I don't have to draw a line and worry about if it's straight or if it's crooked, I would much rather use a command that's going to help us do this faster, okay? So I'm looking here from this line up, I have to go 1 inch. Notice this over here is also 1 inch. So I killed 2 birds with 1 stone. So I'm going to hit my space bar again, brings me back over here. Hit space bar again, brings me back into the command. I'm going to put in a distance of what? Exactly 1. Enter. Select your object that you want to offset, give it a direction that you want to offset, and left click. Now, if I had more objects that I wanted to offset that 1 inch, I could totally continue on with this. Let's take a look here. I'm gonna do something here. This is 1 inch, right? Now 2 inches. Well, 1 plus 1 is 2, so I can offset again 1 inch up. Take a look again. What do we got here? We got 4 inches. Now, I could offset this a third time and then a fourth time, but that might get a little confusing for us. So instead, I'm kind of looking here and I'm seeing, you know what? I got to offset something here 4 inches and I got to offset something here 4 inches. So why don't we go ahead and let's do a little offsetting of 4 inches, okay? So I'm going to go ahead, right click, enter to get myself out of the command. How do I get myself back into the command again? I can hit the space bar, or I'm going to show you another trick. A right click. I now have the option to repeat offset again. That distance that we wanted to offset was 4. And then I'm going to come back over here and 4, 4, and enter. And then it's asking me, which objects do you want to offset? I'm going to look here. It's going to be this line from here to here is 4. And then I'm going to go this line right here up 4. So it was this line up 4. Now I'm going to right click and I'm going to hit enter. Now, if we look here, I've got a lot of material going on here and I don't know if I need all this. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go in and we're going to start cleaning up our drawing a little bit to make things a little easier for us to be able to view and understand. So I'm going to come up here to modify and I'm going to come over to a command called trim. Now I can type in trim in the command prompt down here, TR, and then it'll also come up and populate and say trim. Either way you want to do it. It's going to say select objects or select all. Now, for what we're going to do is we're going to pick a couple of, excuse me, boundaries. I'm going to use this as a boundary. And I'm going to use this as a boundary. And I'm going to explain to you those boundaries in just a second here. Once I've selected those two boundaries, I can right click. And now it's asking me, select the objects that you want to trim. Now, this is a little tricky. You want to select the pieces of the object that are garbage. Okay. So this boundary right here that I picked and this boundary right here that I picked before, anything that touches that blue line, I can trim away. I can even trim away both of these pieces because they cross each other. So I'm going to start by cleaning this up a little bit. I'm going to clean that piece up there, and I'm going to clean that piece here, 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 here. Okay? Now that's a pretty good start to this. I want to get out of it, right click, enter. So I've cleaned up my drawing tremendously already. Now, the next thing that we're going to do is we need to start attacking a couple of other things. I can trim up here. Okay. I can't trim any of this over here yet because I don't still need some of this. I don't know how long the object is. So why don't we go ahead and start figuring out how long our object is? And then that way we can kind of start trimming away and making a little bit more sense of this. So if you look at this drawing, can somebody tell me how long this is? Think it out in your mind. I'll give you a second. How long do you think that is right there to there? Good. 6.25. So if you didn't see that, just follow where the dimension goes to, where it starts, where it stops. Or if you're lefty, where it starts and where it stops. We're going to come back over here. What command do you think I'm going to use? Offset. Good. Now I can come up here and I can go to the modify toolbar and I can come over to the offset. But I showed you guys a little trick before, right? And that was right click and then it would show the repeat whatever the last command was, right? There's also one that says recent inputs. And I can go under here and it'll give me all the different commands I used during this session. So this time I'm just going to use offset again. And I'm going to type in 6.25 and enter. It's going to go from here over. So I want to take this line and I want to go over this direction to the right. All right, so now we've got quite a bit of information that we can start using to trim away some of our materials here, okay? Now, the one thing that I'm looking at here, and I noticed that there's a dimension missing. I'm going to go back in and I'm going to find that dimension for you guys so that it is corrected for us. So give me 1 second and let me update this. All right. So now I got that corrected for us. Excuse me. That dimension was supposed to be 0.5. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go and we are going to do an offset upwards of 0.5. Let's go ahead and right click, repeat offset, distance of 0.5 and enter. Pick this line right here and offset it upwards. Hit enter. And the last thing that we need to do, I believe, is this line right here, which is 4.75. So we're going to go ahead and right click again, offset distance of 4.75, enter. And we're going to use this line to create this point right here. So let's go ahead and offset that line over, do that. Perfect. Now this is where things get a little bit on the confusing side for us because we got a lot of lines going on here and we have to kind of figure out what we want to choose for our borders in order for things to work out correctly for us. Okay. And what we're going to do is we're going to go into modify and trim. And this time what we're going to do, instead of how last time we selected various lines to work as our cut boundary or the line, like let's say this one's highlighted right here, this would be our boundary. So anything that touches that line would be considered able to be cut down or reduced. This time what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click, and what happens now is any line that I touch, I can cut and remove. So I don't need this line here. I don't need any of this stuff up here. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of all those. That's a good start for us. Now looking here, I still do need to do something over here to fix this piece here, but we're going to worry about that in a little bit. So I don't have any lines over here. So I'm going to get rid of this piece here and this piece here. And the reason why I'm not getting rid of this one right here is because I need it for there still. Right? I don't need any of these. Well, actually, I do need that line there, but I don't need this and I don't need this. So what we have to kind of do is we have to kind of look at this drawing and figure out if what we're drawing is going to be the same. So I'm going to cut this piece off here. I don't think I need this line. Is that line 4? Oh, okay, I know what it is. It's this point right here. So if it's that point right here, I don't need anything going this way. Get rid of that. And I can get rid of that. Perfect. And I don't need this here, this here, this here, or that. Perfect. So now we're getting somewhere. And I don't need this. I don't need this. I don't need that. And I really don't even need that line. But guess what? I can't select it and I can't delete it. What happens to it if I hover over it? See how there's that the good old circle with a cross going through it means nope, you cannot delete it because there's nothing. If you select delete on this, there's absolutely nothing more left of that line. So we can't get rid of it. We can still get rid of it, but there's a different way that we have to go about it. So this is what we're going to do. There's a couple of lines that we don't need anymore still. I don't need this one here. Right? I'm going to right click and I'm going to hit enter. Now, I don't need this line and I don't need this line here. So here's what I'm going to do. I am going to just left click one time on the one object. And then I'm going to left click on the other object. And then I'm going to find the DELETE key on my keyboard, the delete key, not the backspace key, but the delete key. So now we're pretty close to finishing this object, but we still got to do something here and we still got to do something over here. So we wouldn't have forgot about this offset earlier. We would have been able to finish this up right away, but that's okay. We're going to do that right now. So I'm going to right click, come back into recent offset or recent inputs, offset. I'm going to look at this distance here, 0.75, 0.75, enter. I'm going to go from here over. So from here over. Perfect. Now I'm going to trim off these two pieces right here. I'm going to show you a different way to do this. This is kind of cool. So instead of going into the trim command, I'm going to select this object. Now see how I get 3 nodes on here? I get an endpoint, a midpoint, and another endpoint. I'm going to select on this node, this last node here, left click. I'm going to simply move it up until I get this green square. All right. Now I'm going to do the same thing over here. I'm going to select on this line. I'm going to take this node right here, this left node. I'm going to slide it over until it touches where I can get this green square again. Doing the exact same thing as the trim command, but this time I didn't have to go into any other commands. I was able to manipulate and modify the line the way I wanted to. Whichever way you feel more comfortable with, you're more than welcome to. But I wanted to show you that little bit of a trick there. And there's going to be a lot of those little tricks I'm going to show you throughout AutoCAD that are going to be things that you can use to your advantage. Okay. I'm going to go into here, trim, right click, select that, get that deleted. Now I pretty much have this object done. The only thing I got to do is I got to draw a line from here to here. So I come up to the draw command and line. And I'm going to connect this point right here with this green square to this green square right here. Right click, enter to get myself out of the command. Now I'm going to look at this object here and I'm going to compare it to the object over here. And I'm going to double check, triple check, quadruple check, and however many other checks you got to do to make sure that I have everything that looks correct. I'm looking. I think it looks good. I think everything looks perfect. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom in. And I'm going to double click on my name. And I'm going to go ahead and change my name. Now, you're going to notice something happened here. And I'm not sure if it's going to keep it there or if it's going to change it out. But I'm going to show you what happens if we have to do something here. And I'm not sure. Sometimes it does it, sometimes it doesn't. All right, but what we're going to do is we're going to go up to here. Because right now it's trying to center our text in this box. I don't want it centered. I'm going to come up to where here it says paragraph. I'm going to click the down. And then what I want to do is I want to justify my text left. I could center it. I could justify it to the right if I wanted, but I want it justified to the left. Very similar to what you would see in your word processing software, okay? Now I'm going to click out, click back in, select that, type in the correct date. Select off. There we go. That's all set. Everything else is correct there. Now I can go up to the A. I can save as. Make sure I'm saving it to my 900 drive. And I'm going to rename it for myself. Now, one thing that I should probably do, watch this, I'm going to do this. Instead of having to type everything in, I'm just going to select on one of my old texts. Click here. Click save. Now, one of the things I probably should do, and I didn't do it for this drawing, But I probably should have turned autosave on. So remember, autosave is AUTOSAVE, enter. And I changed the number to 1 and enter. Now my autosave is set so it resaves every 1 minute. Now, if your computer locks up on you and you have autosave turned on, you're in good shape. If you forget to turn autosave on and your computer crashes, you lose the whole assignment. So just make sure that you remember autosave. Okay. Now, I'm not always going to go through and tell you all the different commands that you need to do. That's something that you need to start remembering on your own. And then when you're all said and done, last thing we're going to do is we're going to come up here to the A, export, PDF, and then it should automatically be saved to the correct name. Export it as extents and make sure it's on our 900 drive and hit save. Simple as that.